There's this quiet pressure that creeps into your life without you realizing it. It doesn't show up loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just weaves into your thoughts, little by little, until everything starts to feel like something you need to manage. Every emotion, a problem to solve. Every silence, a gap to fill. Every relationship, feeling, pause. Discomfort, something to fix. You start living like your job is to keep everything from falling apart, not just outside of you, but inside too. Like there's something wrong if you're not constantly working on yourself. And maybe no one said it directly, but somewhere along the way, you got the message that peace comes from effort, that healing means always doing more, that being aware means being responsible for every crack in the wall. So you monitor your mind, you track your triggers, you analyze every conversation, every reaction, every moment that didn't feel perfect, not because you're obsessive, but because you're scared that if you don't fix it, it'll become who you are. But here's something nobody told you. You're not supposed to fix everything. Not every emotion needs to be untangled. Not every mood needs a meaning. Not every wound needs your full attention right now. Some things soften on their own when you stop picking at them. Some things realign naturally when you finally stop interfering. And the irony is, the more you try to fix everything, the more broken you feel. Because you start viewing your whole inner world like a checklist, unhealed, unresolved, unprocessed, and suddenly you're not even a person anymore. You're just a project that never seems finished, a project that keeps finding new things to fix. But you were never supposed to live that way. The problem with always trying to fix yourself is that you stop seeing what's already working. You become so focused on what's off that you overlook what's quietly holding you together. You miss the progress that didn't feel dramatic. You forget that stillness is allowed, that it doesn't have to be followed by an insight or an upgrade. Because when you treat every discomfort as a red flag, you start living like you're broken by default. Like being human is a flaw that needs constant maintenance. Even your peace becomes a task. Even your joy feels like something you need to double check. You sit with a feeling for 2 seconds and then ask, why am I feeling this? Where did it come from? What does this mean about me? And suddenly, you're no longer in the moment. You're in the analysis. You're diagnosing, dissecting, working on yourself again, when maybe all that part of you needed was to be felt, not fixed. Because not every thought needs a response. Not every reaction means you're regressing. Not every emotional wave means you failed your healing. You don't have to turn your inner world into a science lab. You don't need to assign value to everything you feel. You're allowed to just feel, like you're allowed to just breathe without giving it a label. And maybe that's the deeper issue. You've learned to only feel safe when you're in control. Only feel okay when you're doing something about it. But some parts of your life aren't waiting for you to fix them. They're waiting for you to stop interfering long enough for them to recalibrate on their own. Think about it. The body knows how to heal cuts without you managing every cell. The heart knows how to settle once it's listened to. The nervous system doesn't need constant supervision. It needs safety. And sometimes, the safest thing you can do is stop trying so hard. Not because you're giving up, but because you're finally trusting that not everything inside you is a crisis. Some of it is just energy. Some of it is just memory. Some of it is just being human. And none of it makes you broken. It just makes you alive. So what do you do instead when that familiar urge to fix shows up? Because it will. It's wired into you now. The moment you feel something heavy, unclear, or uncomfortable, your mind starts scanning for solutions. It's like your inner reflex is, there's a problem, I have to do something. And that makes sense. You've trained yourself to be aware, to grow, to be responsible. But sometimes that same instinct, that drive to fix, isn't helping you grow anymore. It's just keeping you busy. So here's the shift. Instead of trying to fix the moment, witness it. Just be with it. Not because you don't care, but because not everything that feels uncomfortable needs to be solved. Sometimes it just needs to move through you. And it can't do that when you're tightening your grip. This is where presence becomes a practice. When that emotional noise starts to rise, the anxious thought, the inner tension, the pressure to act, don't follow it into a mental spiral. Instead, just pause. Notice it. Name it if you want. Feel the weight of it without the story. Not as something to fix, but something to sit next to. You'll be shocked at how often that energy starts to shift. Once you stop trying to control it, that part of you that wants to fix everything is just afraid. Afraid that if you don't manage it, something bad will happen. Afraid that if you don't fix it now, it'll get worse. But when you stay present, when you don't react, rush, or resist, you teach your body something new. You teach it that this moment is safe, even if it's unclear, even if it's uncomfortable. And that's the kind of healing you can't fake. Not the kind where you figured it out. The kind where you finally stopped fighting it. This doesn't mean you stop caring about growth. It means you stop mistaking discomfort for danger. You stop assuming every emotion needs your intervention. And instead, you just let it pass through like weather, like breath, like something that belongs for now, but isn't who you are. And the longer you sit with something without trying to fix it, the more clearly you start to see what was never broken. You begin to notice how much of your healing was really just you trying to become more acceptable, trying to become easier to love, trying to shrink your complexity into something more manageable for yourself and for the world. And when you stop, when you finally step back and stop constantly adjusting who you are to feel worthy, something powerful starts to happen. Your real self begins to come forward. Not the version that was edited through self-help books and morning routines. Not the version that always knows what to say or how to look. Not the version of you that feels safe because it's working on something. But the one underneath. The one who doesn't need fixing. The one who didn't come here to be perfect. The one who's already whole, but was buried beneath layers of effort, awareness, and control. That's what happens when you stop forcing healing. You make room for truth. Not a new idea of who you should be, but a quiet returning to who you already are when you're not performing. And that's where peace starts to feel different. Not a temporary relief that you earn after doing everything right, but a natural state that shows up when you're no longer trying to earn your place in the world. You start to feel safe in stillness. You start to move slower, not because you're lost, but because you're finally in rhythm with your life again. You don't second guess every word you say. You don't rehearse your emotions before expressing them. You don't feel like every moment is a test. You just live, fully, messily, honestly, and you realize this is what you were chasing all along. Not the fixed version of yourself, but the free one. But here's something no one talks about enough. When you're always fixing yourself, you start building walls instead of bridges. Not just with yourself, but with the world around you. Because if you're constantly monitoring your emotions, constantly analyzing your reactions, constantly questioning whether you're healed enough to show up, you're never fully here. You're watching your life like a recording, observing instead of participating, polishing every feeling before you share it, filtering your truth until it doesn't even feel like you anymore. And the irony is, the more you try to perfect yourself, the harder it becomes to connect with anyone. Because connection doesn't come from being impressive, it comes from being real. From the moments when your voice shakes, from the times you don't know the answer, from the honesty that leaks out when you finally stop scripting yourself. But if you're always trying to be healed, you don't leave space for others to meet you where you are. You show them the version of you that's working on things, not the one who just is, and you start feeling alone, even around people, even when things seem fine on the outside, because you've trained yourself to be presentable, but not present, and that's not your fault. You were taught that vulnerability is only okay when it's polished. That struggle is only acceptable when it's framed as part of your growth story. But real presence doesn't come with a caption. It comes in the moments when you let yourself be fully human, without translating it into a breakthrough, when you stop trying to find the lesson and just let the moment be. When you stop trying to package your emotions and just let them exist. When you stop shaping yourself to be easier to understand and just let yourself be felt. That's when peace starts to feel like something you can touch, not because you chased it down, but because you finally stopped standing in the way. You didn't fix yourself into connection. You let go into it, and for the first time, you weren't performing your healing. You were actually living it. So what does life start to feel like when you stop fixing everything? At first it feels unfamiliar, almost empty, not because nothing's happening, but because the background noise you've been living with finally starts to fade. And without that constant internal commentary, without the checklist of what's wrong or what needs work, you're left with something strange. Stillness, space, silence. And at first it can feel uncomfortable. You reach for something to adjust. You instinctively want to check in on your progress. You wonder, am I missing something? Shouldn't I be doing more? But if you don't rush back in, if you stay, if you breathe, if you let the stillness hold you for just a little longer than feels comfortable, you start to notice something else. Clarity, not the kind that comes from overthinking, the kind that rises naturally, like breath returning after a long run. You start feeling what's real without asking if it's right. You start hearing your own thoughts without needing to edit them. You stop needing to label your experience and begin to actually live it. And slowly, life stops feeling like a project and starts feeling like a rhythm. Some days are heavy, some moments are unclear, but instead of trying to rearrange them into meaning, you learn how to meet them exactly as they are, without needing to prove anything. You start moving through your day without constantly asking, is this good enough? Am I doing this right? What does this say about where I am in my journey? Because there is no journey anymore. There's just life. Alive, imperfect, honest, quiet. And it finally feels safe to be inside it. You make decisions without panic. You rest without guilt. You speak without a script. You feel things, even the uncomfortable things, and you stop trying to turn them into something else. You're no longer performing clarity. You're living from presence. And the most beautiful part, you realize that the peace you were chasing through fixing was waiting in the space you were avoiding all along. But here's what really changes when you stop trying to fix everything. You stop making your inner world a performance. You no longer feel the need to constantly monitor your progress. You don't wake up wondering if you're doing enough to stay aligned. You stop obsessing over how you feel every minute of the day and start realizing that feeling is just part of being. There's no final test you're preparing for, no perfect version of yourself waiting at the end of some invisible to-do list. And the relief that brings, it's massive, because once you stop trying to fix every thought and manage every emotion, you finally get to live through them instead of constantly trying to make them behave. You let joy show up without questioning if it's real. You let sadness pass through without needing to heal it. You let boredom exist without rushing to solve it. You let life be a little messy, and that's what makes it feel honest again. You don't numb out. You soften. You don't give up. You lean in. You don't ignore the pain. You stop picking at it. And in that space, you become easier to be around. Not just for others, for yourself. You're no longer correcting yourself mid-sentence, no longer translating your feelings into safe, explainable language, no longer overanalyzing your humanness like it's a math equation. You give yourself permission to be misunderstood sometimes, to not get everything right, to not have a profound explanation for every single mood or moment, because life doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence, and presence isn't found through effort. It's found through trust. Trust that your life is already unfolding. Trust that your mind doesn't need to supervise every second of your growth. Trust that whatever's happening right now isn't something to fix. It's something to feel, to hold, to witness. And sometimes that's the most healing thing you can do. Not control the moment, not analyze it, Just stay with it, long enough for it to change you in ways no fixing ever could. So maybe this is the moment you stop trying to fix what was never broken. Maybe you don't need another tool or technique or breakthrough. Maybe what you need is space. Space to feel what's here, to stop performing your healing, to stop managing your emotions like they're a threat. You're not a problem to solve. You're a presence to return to. And if this video gave you even one breath of that, leave a comment with the word permission. Not because you need it, but because sometimes it helps to say it out loud, to claim the space you've been avoiding, to stop reaching and start receiving. And if you want more reminders like this, gentle, honest, and human, subscribe. There's more coming, not to fix you, but to meet you, exactly where you are.